Okay, I think we're on. Forgive me. Let's see. Give me a few minutes. What's going on here? Okay, got it. All right. Okay, let's start our program. Well, everybody, welcome to Cheyenne's Forum, and today is November 28th, and right now time is the Pacific time 1:09 p.m. Hello, Tom.
Hello,
Nice to see
how
you.
are you?
Very good, very
Good,
good. And
good to see
thank
you.
you for coming here again. And I wish you had a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yes, we did. And you also?
Yes, yes, very good. Thank you so much.
Good.
And I'm very glad that Tom can join our program again today. Tom is formal FBI assistant director, and he actually came to our program for this is the fourth time. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your information to share with everybody, which I think is very important for us to know what's going on with this country. And for this program, we'll doing English, and I'll make a separate program to translate the interview into Chinese. So if you prefer the Chinese program, you can wait for another maybe 1 or 2 hours. Then I'll make another program. And if you have questions, please just leave a message in our live chat, and Tom, we're very happy to answer the questions regarding the challenge we're facing of this nation. So Tom, I know that you have some trouble to see my background today.
No, unfortunately, I see it very, very clearly.
Yeah, that's
Looks like it's one of two things. It's either the January 6th committee in
mhm,
session, or it's the trial of all the gangsters in Sicily, where they had all the bosses on trial
mhm,
years ago when I was running the FBI's organized crime program
mhm,
and worked with the Italian government, the Sicilians in particular, to deal with all of the gangsters that were ruining Sicily and hurting Italy. And
mhm,
unfortunately, when I see the people behind you, it kind of stirs up that similar emotion of a group of individuals who have no regard for the good of the country, only
mhm,
want to maintain power at all costs, and will do anything, say anything,
right.
go anywhere to
Mhm.
do it. And
Yeah,
they've been doing that.
I
And
totally agree.
unfortunately, the Republicans have dealt with this from weakness. They've done next to nothing about it. They
Mhm,
claim that, well, they don't have a big enough majority in the House to do something. They don't have a big enough majority or any majority in the U.S. Senate if
mhm,
they have to have impeachment trials in the Senate. So
mhm,
therefore, just check their watch and their calendar and see how much more time we have until Joe Biden is no longer president.
mhm. So you mean that they are totally give up?
Seems
The
like it. I'd like to see evidence that they haven't, but so far I don't see that.
Mhm. So yeah, today we probably will like to discuss two questions. One is the January 6th, the footage released, I think last week. So what's the next? I think the two main purpose for releasing this footage is one, we know what really happened that day. So we have some people, there are innocent citizens, they are put in jail right now. So can we release them because of the footage? That's purpose one. Purpose two, what about the people behind me? Can we hold them accountable? We should. And don't forget about Nancy Pelosi. We know so many things about her, and she seems like the master of the whole thing. So, is there anything that we can do to Nancy Pelosi and her group of people?
Well, the
So that's
problem
the
is
one
that
question.
the method, in our Constitution to deal with
Mhm.
politicians like that, first of all, if they're crooked, they should be prosecuted. But we
Right.
don't have that. We have right
Why?
now, they
Why
get
we don't
total support from their own party. They stick together like a bunch of rats in a herd and get away with it, frankly.
Okay, so Tom, excuse me. So that means they are above the law. Can we understand like that?
Yeah, I'll say that. They're above the law.
Okay. Is there
Because
anything?
the law is not an effective way right now to deal with them. The only other real effective way would be impeachment. That's not going to happen because the parties are too close. We don't have a clear majority in the House. And then you have some Republican rhinos that won't even go along with holding Democrats accountable in the House. And then you have the Senate. The Republicans don't even have a majority of the Senate. And then they have a very weak leader like Mitch McConnell. So they're not doing anything. So between the leadership in the House and the lack of leadership in the Senate, these people are getting away with it over and over and continuing. And almost the only other alternative is to get them voted out of office. But unfortunately, we see election after election where Democrats continue to reelect these people and put them back in the situation they're in, even when they're proven to be liars or incompetent or corrupt. Doesn't matter. They get reelected. And to me, that's just an incredible situation. We need accountability. And the one sure method of accountability in the United States is vote them out of office. Vote in people that are going to straighten this out.
Right. So there are two key points. One is vote them out. Second is who count the votes. So then we go back to 2020. What happened about the 2020 election? If we don't solve the problem of 2020 election, the history will repeat.
Well, again, they fight off any attempt to investigate or look into it. They get people to go along with them. Back in 2020, you get people like the Attorney General, Bill Barr, that doesn't let the FBI conduct proper investigations. And as a matter of fact, have allowed the FBI to be misdirected by the Biden administration and by the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, and by the FBI Director, Christopher Hayes. These guys got to be taken out of office. There's no way. Now, we're going to have a presidential election, obviously, in 1 year, but we still have, we have appointed officials that have to be taken out. The Attorney General, the Secretary of Homeland Security, other leaders, as well as the Director of the FBI and other key officials. But right now, we have seen over the last couple of years the weaponization of the Department of Justice. So they're able to wield charges against their enemies, like, former President Trump, and protect their friends, like the Bidens, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden. The whole family's made millions of dollars. And, and Democrats will stand up, like the one gentleman I see behind your head, Jamie Rank, will stand up and say, "Oh, there's no evidence. Oh, we should be ignoring these papers that say they took millions of dollars, bank transfer records and all of that. Pay no attention. That's not real evidence." Or if the grandchildren got millions of dollars, it's because they were good kids. That's why. That's not evil that the family received millions of dollars from China, from Romania, from Ukraine, from other countries into their personal bank accounts of all the family members. That's okay. It's a good family. They deserve to be rich.
Sure. I realized, Tom, that more and more people are getting to know that what really happened in this country. Or we can say more and more people are waking up of the situation that we're faced, which is very serious. And I just wonder, like our founding fathers, do they ever imagine that one day the majority of the big, bad people, they are control the country, control the Congress, control the White House? Are they ever imagined things like this happen? Or if they have the protection, what are their solution? Or do we have any solution on the situation like this? just like you said, okay, White House, they don't do anything. Like a Congress, Democrats are control the Congress. I mean, control the Senate. And the Congress were just very close, Republic and Democrats are really close. So if they have something bad in their mind, if they want to do something bad, is there anything that we can do to stop it?
Well, I think at this point, the founding fathers thought that there were adequate measures to deal with. If somebody was corrupt, they could be prosecuted for corruption and removed from office and put in jail. Right. If we have politicians or leaders that were corrupted, and it's specified in the Constitution, they could be impeached. So they thought, well, that's going to be an adequate mechanism to take out a crooked president or a crooked senator or congressman. So they looked at all of these solutions and they thought, that's plenty. That'll be enough to deal with any of these things that come up. And I think that what they didn't count on was the degree of unanimity in one party to basically develop a plan and implement a plan to take over the country. And they have done it successfully. Yeah. And they're trying to continue to do it election after election. And meantime, there has been little, if any, coordinated effort to stop them to deal with the coordinated effort that they have in place to maintain power through corruption, through bribery, through crooked operations, through false advertising, through control of the media, through control of the Department of Justice and the FBI. All of this is the perfect storm of evil and corruption taking over the country at the moment. So we have basically the reason I come on this podcast with you and the few other podcasts that I do, the reason I do it is I see next year's election as one of our last chances. You hear that every election. I've heard that every election in my adult life. This is the most important election in our lifetime. This coming election, when you have a former president facing indictment 91 times from a crooked party wanting to take him out because they're afraid if he gets back in office, he might do the right thing. He might have more power because he knows better than the mistakes he made last time, trusting the wrong people or not expecting the amount of evil that he was going to encounter in this country. And I think that is a really, really telling situation of the position that he's in. So President Trump, to me, whether you like him or whether you think he's been mean or his personality or whatever, he represents us right now. I see him as like a human metaphor of the innocence of the American people caught up in this juggernaut of corruption and evil, which the Democratic Party has mounted against all of us.
Yes.
And I take it to him, he's the tip of the spear that really is us. If they're able to penetrate that spear into Trump, then they're poking that into all of us as a collective body of U.S. persons, citizens, or permanent residents, or others that love this country. And people that, my grandparents came here with the idea of the American dream for their children and grandchildren, and now we're living it. And you and your family and your friends and your colleagues that have come from China and other countries with the same idea, the same ideals of coming to a country that's going to be fair and honest and just, and then to arrive into this situation that we see now. And if people like you don't do what you do, then there's going to be little opportunity for people like me to spread the word of what we're facing and what we have to do to stop it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for just telling the truth. And then I know that you're trying your best. Thank you so much. And I wish more and more people will realize that how serious our situation is right now. And so sounds like our founding father don't even imagine what could happen. They thought that our current system, which they designed, will work, but they did not expect how bad it can be.
I agree. I think that they would be, they knew there were plenty when you read the history, and I'm devoted to learning history. When you read that, they had evil people, they had corrupt power, they had all of that, but they really thought they had the answer in how to deal with it, how to correct it, how to improve the country from it, how to overcome wars, civil wars, external wars, famines, any disaster that came up, we'd be able to deal with it as a country, as a united people. And I think that they just really had no clue that there'd be so many people that with evil intentions that could form a group, could organize together. Now, during my FBI career, I ran the FBI's International Organized Crime Program for 5 years. So when I look at this is no different than La Cosa Nostra or Chinese triads or Japanese Boryokudan, known as Yakuza, or Russian organized crime, Ukrainian organized, you name it. This is very similar to that. And unfortunately, it's a political power of a political party in control, using crooked mechanisms to maintain control. And I think that that's the part that the founding fathers just never expected, that the House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate would be so closely divided, and the evil and the good would be almost even. And just a slight variation in one direction or the other means who's going to win, who's going to be in control.
Well, so it depends. Looks like for the situation like this, it depends on us to solve the problem. We have some power, have the Constitution, have everything, have the system from our founding father, but these are not enough to deal with the situation of today. So it depends on every one of us to fight back for this country.
It takes everybody to wake up, learn, open your eyes and look what's going on. Pay attention to what's going on. And you see it on a small scale, you see it on larger scales. For example, right now, it's pretty clear that the Democratic Party wants to dump Joe Biden. And they're trying to figure out the most efficient way to do that, with the idea that they really want now Gavin Newsom to be the presidential nominee of the Democratic Party. Well, what a great choice. Here's a guy, I spent the middle 1990s, 94 to 97, as an assistant in charge of the FBI in San Francisco. And San Francisco, and I grew up in Chicago area, which I thought was the most beautiful city in the world. And I've been to more than 90 countries, so I have an idea of good cities around the world. San Francisco was one of the most beautiful cities in the world, not just in the United States, not just California, in the world. And at the time, back when Willie Brown was the mayor and they had other officials, just a spectacularly blessed with the natural resources and everything. And pardon?
It's like a dream city.
It was very much a dream city. And the 3 years that I was there, I thought, how lucky to be there, to be able to work there, deal with the people there who were just spectacular. So then they elect Gavin Newsom. And in a few short years, he ruins the city of San Francisco. Crime on the rise, homeless people on the sidewalks with waste and debris and needles and human waste. And suddenly San Francisco goes from one of the most beautiful cities anywhere to one of the worst. And then Gavin Newsom, do the people wake up and say, this guy is a terrible leader, we should never put him in charge of anything important ever again? Oh, wait a minute, let's put him in charge of the entire state of California. He did such a great job in San Francisco. Let's see if he can do that with the state, which has the 5th largest economy in the world. State of California. State of California. And now he ruins California. Businesses leaving the northern part of California, the southern, the cities, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, all of the big cities in trouble because of his poor, evil leadership.
Evil. I like
Oh,
the word evil. It's not even poor leadership. It's evil leadership.
right.
Their intention to
Intention,
make
right.
California
Intentionally
way
ran the city into the ground, then
right,
run the state into the ground.
right.
Well, that's not enough. If you're ambitious, which he is, you can't be happy with just ruining a whole state, one of the most important states in the entire world. That's not good enough.
Right,
You've got to ruin the whole country. So
right.
now that's the next step in the plan. Let's let Gavin Newsom run the United States. He'll have a hard time exceeding the lack of leadership or the negative leadership of Joe Biden, but let's let him try. If anybody could exceed the evil and the corruption and the lack of ability of the Biden administration, well, it's probably Gavin Newsom, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make him the nom. So we're watching this earthquake in slow motion, which is now we're 1 year, 12 months away from the election. And let's just watch this unfold, how they delicately get Biden to suddenly realize his health isn't good enough to last 4 more years. Not even good enough for 4 more months, but 4 years for sure. So delicately let him down. Delicately let down the most unpopular vice president probably in the modern history of the United States. Just complete disrespect for Kamala Harris. So let's figure out, Black women are a significant part of the Democratic base, so we can't alienate them. We got to be careful with that. So they have to find a way for her to land, even if it's to put her as vice president under Gavin Newsom, maybe, or maybe let her run for governor. If he vacates the governor spot to run for president, well, they're going to need a leader with the similar abilities of Gavin Newsom to run the state of California. Oh, Kamala Harris, great candidate. So now we're going to watch this. This is going to happen while we're watching this in the next 12 months. Mark my words. Let's see where Gavin Newsom is in 11 months from now on the eve of the presidential election as the presidential candidate with an outstanding chance to win the presidency. And then we can watch the whole country go down the drain. It's not enough, San Francisco, California, none of that's good enough. We've got to ruin the whole country with his Marxist, socialist policies, which have caused this to happen. This is not an accident that California is in ruins. Businesses are leaving. People are migrating out of California to other states that they consider better investment quality, better quality of life, whether it's Texas or Florida, or other states similar to that. And we're watching this. We're watching this and knowing this disaster is happening. It's kind of like when you watch the weather, and I grew up in the Midwest where we had all kinds of tornadoes in April, May, June tornado season. And you'd watch the weather and they'd show the radar and they'd show the tornado is on the ground and it's heading eastbound across Missouri and into the Illinois and heading to Springfield, Illinois, and everybody there take cover. It's coming for you. And we would trust the weather. Yes, it's coming for us. Take cover. Well, how do we take cover against the presidential nomination of Gavin Newsom with a possible vice presidency of Kamala Harris? What do we do? We're watching on radar the storm coming at all of us.
So the only purpose these people doing things like this is to destroy the America. That's the only explanation. I cannot come up any other explanation of how they operate the whole thing. Put Joe Biden in the White House. I did not use the word elect. No, he's been putting into the White House. And now they were putting Gavin Newsom into the White House. And these two people are proved very bad leaders. Actually, I don't consider they're leaders. They're destroyers. So they have their mission to destroy this country. Talking about destroy, Gavin Newsom has a very good approved record in California. I live in California for 20 years. I know what happened in this state. So sometimes when I try to make the program, I just feel like I have no word to say how serious the situation is. I wish everyone should realize that this is not like a regular disagreement between the Democrats and Republic. No, it's not. It's a war, and we are losing as a people, as a country.
Yeah, I
So,
think that ruining the country is kind of a sidebar. I think the main objective is to be in power forever. That's number one.
mm-hmm.
So by bringing the country down, by bringing the electorate, I guess, to be stupid, to be apathetic, or to be in a situation where they just don't think they can do anything about it, that they're helpless. The public is helpless. So I think in their mind, that's perfect because they'll stay in power forever and that's what they want. So they'd rather be in charge of a country that's 2/3 ruined than not in charge of a magnificent country, which the United States is capable of being. And I think that that's their main goal. The individuals in the picture behind you are there to be in control, to be in power, to take control over you. And I think that, that's the whole idea. And when you look at, or if you read like I did in 7th and 8th grade as a young kid, one of the most popular books we read was Animal Farm by George Orwell, followed by 1984 by George Orwell, with the prediction of what the future held, Big Brother controlling the country. And Orwell brilliantly used the analogy of a farm. And the farm animals were the population of, in his mind at the time, population of the Soviet Union. That they were all animals under the control of some animals, superior animals. And you have the pigs in charge, and Snowball and Napoleon, two leaders of the pigs, commenting to each other that, all pigs are equal, but some pigs are more equal. And that's something I've never forgot that line my entire life. Which pigs are going to be more equal? Because they're still going to be pigs. The pigs behind you, exactly.
Yeah,
they're more equal.
Yeah,
they know better than we do. They know better than the general public. They control the media. They control the narrative and get away with it. And that's still what they're doing. They're in charge.
In order to stay in power, thank you so much for mentioning that. They do anything they can. They don't care about the law. They don't care about the country. They don't care about people. They don't care nothing in order to keep themselves into the power. That's the only thing they want. So it's very horrible. So that's the first question we're talking about is the General 6 footage, and then talk about how can we stop it, stop the whole thing from getting worse. And you mentioned that to next year for 2024, the election is the most important one and is the last chance to everyone, to each one of us. And the second question is actually very related. It's about the illegal immigration. I call this invasion. I just saw a number from Fox and said that U.S. taxpayers spend $451 billion per year for the housing and the medical care for illegal immigrants. Per year, $451 billion. It's up to today. So we think about it, we have more and more immigrants, like illegal immigrants, come here every single day. So I didn't see anything really happen to stop it. So where's the White House? Where's the Congress? Everybody know this is this is bring the dangerous, the most important, the most dangerous situation to the country, to everyone. Why this leadership is like they disappeared? They don't care. They don't do anything to stop it. What's wrong?
Well, the Biden administration has decided this from the very first day of the administration, that there would be no enforcement of border controls. Now, there's some enforcement at the Canadian border because of the Canadian government. They have created the checkpoints. So if you're in Canada coming into the United States, or US going into Canada, you're dealing with Canadian border officials. You don't have that at the southern border, or you have American officials waving them in, or cursory checks. But the gotaways that get in, we have no idea who they are. We have no semblance of vetting that goes on with them.
Right.
Now, I've had some people complain that we have a lot of people overstay their visas. And I've said that that's a lesser problem, because to get a visa, you have to apply and supply information about yourself. So you're somewhat vetted, you're somewhat examined before you get that visa. So if you come in with a visa and then stay too long, at least the government knows who you are and where you're from. But in the case of the border with Mexico, the gotaways got away. And so by definition, we don't know who they are. We don't know where they're from. We don't know if they're good, bad, or otherwise. And we can assume that they're probably not real good, or they would have tried to come in legally compared to what's going on now. So I think that the ability of the U.S. government to have any clue of who's coming in this country, even though we know after October 7th attack in Israel, Hamas has people in Mexico.
Right.
Hezbollah has a group in Mexico, and all they have to do is walk in. And they already know how to use weapons, explosives, missiles, rockets, you name it. And they're just walking distance to the United States. Now, you heard Christopher Wray, FBI director, 6 or 7 months ago, say that the issue of our southern border is a national security issue. Where has he been since? Nothing more from him since. And so, here's somebody that if he really wanted to protest what's going on at the border as a security issue, because he's basically the chief law enforcement officer in the United States, director of the FBI. He knows the vulnerability that we all face in this country. You in particular at the California-Mexico border in San Diego, they're not just a walking distance into the United States. They're walking distance from where you and your loved ones live. The idea that they could come in and kill you or people you love or others all along that border, much less than enter the rest of the United States, is just unbelievable that nobody's doing anything about it.
Right. That's my question. That they don't care, or this is the purpose. Think about what happened in Ireland recently.
Right.
So, well, I'm not surprised.
The Ireland issue, by the way, the Ireland issue is being misreported by mainstream media.
Okay, so what do you know about this issue?
Well, I know what I see with my own eyes, that the people of Ireland have decided that their government has betrayed them by letting all these migrants in, and they'll have to take the law in their own hands to stop it. And they're doing that. So these are not some reactionary right-wing people that, have Islamophobia or any of that. This is like they're looking at nobody's going to save them if they don't save themselves.
Right. I think it's the same thing happened here in the States. This is where my question comes from. Where are the law enforcement? Where are the White House? Is the federal? Why they don't do?
Because it's kind of like dominoes. They're all being knocked over in a row. So you start with one of the most effective things bringing down the United States was a decision by George Soros 10 or 15 years ago to basically decapitate all across the board. So all of the county and city prosecutors that have received donations from Soros have gotten into the office with the idea that they are forbidden from prosecution. So whether you're Kim Fox in Cook County, Illinois, or Braggs in Manhattan, New York, or any of these other cities, is you get a Soros-backed attorney district attorney, prosecuting attorney, and then they don't prosecute. And so now what happens is crimes go unprosecuted, unaddressed. Right. And then what happens with the police? You don't have to dismantle the police or take them out of office or do any of that. All you have to do is make it impossible to prosecute a crime. Then all the police in the world can't save you because they're unable to bring prosecution when they know the prosecutors won't prosecute. And so that's why the cities are out of control. Street crime is out of control. There's no accountability on the street for what's going on, and the prosecutors have no desire to straighten it out. So it's really a perfect plan. Don't attack the police. Don't attack the politicians in general. Find out in the entire cogwheel of justice in the United States, where is the vulnerability where you could stick a stick into the wheel and keep it from turning? And that's the point. You can stop the gears from moving at the district attorney level. And that's what they've done. It's a brilliant, evil plan.
Right, right. So then I have a question asking you, who Soros is, who he really is, who is behind him, who is associated with him, how come he's so smart, how come he can affect American politics and the law enforcement system so deeply. At the end of the day, he's American citizen, right? And he doesn't like American. And
he's Hungarian born. And during World War II, he assisted Nazis, and he's supposedly Jewish, but he assisted Nazis in rounding up Jews to kill them in World War II.
Right.
And so his own country, Hungary, has banned him.
Right.
He can't come back to Hungary.
Right.
So they know him to be a communist, to be a Marxist, and to want to bring down the West. Now, he's part of the evil plan. If you go back 20 or 30 years, the World Economic Forum, he's one of the key leaders in that group, the globalists, we nickname all of them. And the idea of the globalists is, if you're a globalist, you're looking at a strategy. How do we bring down the United States? How do we get the other countries, the other 200 world countries, to be equal to the United States?
Right.
And so for years, the plan was increase education in those countries, increase economic opportunity in those countries, do everything possible to raise the economies of the rest of the world up to U.S. level. Well, that didn't work, and it hasn't worked. And so then plan B is what we're seeing now. If we can't bring the rest of the world up to U.S. level, let's bring the United States down. Let's bring America down to the level of the rest of the world, the other countries. So no longer U.S. exceptionalism, U.S. is the number one country, the U.S. is a superpower, none of that. Let's bring it down. And the one problem with that right now, from their standpoint, is that the word has not gone out to the rest of the world. So you have these millions of people trying to get into the United States. They don't believe mainstream media. They don't believe George Soros or the World Economic Forum or the globalists or the British or the EU or anybody else telling them, oh, the U.S. isn't that great. They know better. And they know that even with the U.S. down and diminished right now, even with all of that, the economic levels, you name it, that the U.S. can bounce back practically overnight with the right leadership. The U.S. in every major world war.
Thank you so much. You gave me hope.
Well, every major world war in the last 150 years, the U.S. was not prepared, and the military went into it knowing that we are way outclassed, outnumbered, out-equipped, and what are we going to do about it? So basically, what the Americans decided was, let's have our industry go to work and save us and build the arsenal of democracy, as Franklin Roosevelt used to call it. So that was the idea. After that, after World War I, we built it up, and we were helped win World War I in November of 1918. So then the United States and our government and our policymakers, we learned absolutely nothing. Nothing. So
Yep.
now, in the period from 1918 till the 1930s, well, let's look.
Hello, Tom. Think me. Hello, Tom. Can you hear me? I think we're experiencing some network
Which
issue.
is basically an immediate declaration of war against the United States.
Excuse me, Tom. I think we lost you for 1 minute, 30 seconds, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're talking about after World War One.
Okay.
Go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that we didn't learn anything from World War One. So we went into World War One with the idea. Woodrow Wilson, the president, had decided in 1914, we're not going to enter World War One.
Right.
We're going to stay out of it. 1914, 15, 16. And then finally, under all the pressure in the world, decides, okay, the United States is going to join the Allies and send our troops, by ship to Paris and deploy them in France and take on Germany. And they do that. And then by November of 1918, the Germans basically surrender or agree to an armistice, we'll just stop fighting. So they don't really quite surrender, but it basically is for all practical purposes. So now what I was saying is the United States learned nothing. 1914 to 1917, we had to start from scratch, making weaponry, hiring enough people, training them, all of that from nothing. So now, basically, World War One is over. The troops are coming home victorious, and the United States has learned a valuable lesson. Well, maybe not. So during the 1920s and 30s, yet again, we're never going to fight another war. We're not going to. And World War One was actually nicknamed the war to end all wars. Well, that didn't last very long. So now, in the 1930s, you have Hitler rebuilding the German army, the German military, the Luftwaffe in the air, and the ground troops. On the Asia side, without anybody paying enough attention, the Imperial Japanese Army is just rising up. The invasion of Manchuria, the invasion of China, the rape of Nanking in 1935, 1937, all of that happens while the rest of the world is basically sleeping. Japan is rising to power, and then suddenly we get attacked on December 7th, and now the United States, again, totally unprepared for war on any major scale, much less World War One. So now, once again, the United States has to turn on the factories with the help of companies like Ford or Chrysler or General Motors. They start, instead of building luxury cars, they start building tanks. Instead of luxury yachts for the rich, they start building ships. And that begins the war industry of the United States in full power, 1940, 41, 42. And then what I left out was that 2 days after Pearl Harbor, Hitler declares war on the United States. Among the many stupid things he did, I'm not talking about the evil, but just stupid things, that was one of them. Declares war on the United States. And basically, Roosevelt had been looking for an excuse to go into Europe and join World War II. He was referring to us, we're building all of these ships and equipment and giving them to the Russians, giving them to the British. And Roosevelt's words were that the U.S. will be the arsenal of democracy, that we're not going to fight in the war, we're going to stay out, but we'll send the equipment to the people who will fight the war. So then Hitler saves Roosevelt by declaring war on the United States 2 days after Pearl Harbor. Well, now that's it. We're going to war on a worldwide basis. Everybody supports it. Sing the songs, wave the flags, send the marching bands out in the street, and let's go to war. And everybody thinks, yes, let's go to war. And so we accomplish within 3 or 4 years the defeat of Germany in Europe and Japan in Asia. And then what happens? Well, we learned a lesson again like we learned in World War I. Actually, no. So we let our military resources start reducing. But the exception was that now we have the Cold War after World War II. Now, this is controversial. Everybody thinks the United States won World War II. Not true. Soviet Union won. They gained the most. What did we gain out of World War II, winning World War II? Soviet Union, all of the Eastern Bloc countries in Europe become part of the Soviet Union. The Warsaw Pact countries, Eastern Bloc countries in Europe, they're all on the side of the Soviet Union. So really, the Soviet Union gained the most. Now, they lost the most people. They had 40, 50 million people killed. But they gained the most in terms of political power in Eastern Europe. And in Asia, the one thing that happened there that was different was the United States basically took over Japan. So we have General MacArthur placed in charge of Japan. And in the 5-year period that the U.S. physically controlled Japan as an occupying army, then during that time, Japan gets a new constitution, they get new laws, they get democracy, they get all of these things that they didn't have. And the imperial Japanese military have lost all the power that they originally had because of that, because the U.S. basically turned Japan into an effective democracy. And that has lasted in many ways. Japan maintained that power that came from the U.S. instilling a government on them that they would not have already arrived at on their own.
So today, do we learn some new things about the war? Because I think we are in the war right now.
I don't know. I don't know if we've learned anything. I like to think, yes, we have. We know better now. We're not going to allow our military to become so weak and all of that. And I'm watching these reports on the news right now that the Biden administration has given away so much equipment to Ukraine that has basically been destroyed on the battlefield by the Russians. And now they're talking about the last batch of weaponry that Biden wanted to give Israel following the October 7th attack by Hamas. They're basically saying, well, this shipment was on its way to Ukraine. Never mind, let's take it and send it to Israel. So now Ukraine's not getting the equipment, which we would have lost and had blown up anyway. So it's going to Israel. What's happening with that? So good question of what will happen. In the past, Israel has really been under a lot of control by the United States in the many wars that have come since Israel was formed in 1948. And probably the best example would be 1973, the Yom Kippur War. So during that war, Egypt and Syria attack Israel. And they're winning, and Israel's in trouble and all of that. But Israel goes on the counterattack, gets help from the United States yet again. And Israel now, in fighting back, crosses the Suez and goes into Egypt and occupies land in Egypt. And then what happens, interestingly, is the United States, not the United Nations, not even the United States, tells Israel, get out, back up, back across the Suez, back into Israel, and negotiate peace with Egypt. And they do. And Israel and Egypt have had outstanding peace for 50 years. And that's why Egypt has been, very reluctant. That's why Egypt has said, we don't want refugees from Gaza because Hamas is going to be part of them. They'd already dealt with the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas many years ago. They don't want them back. They know that they'll arrive in Egypt and start causing trouble and trying to take over the government again. And they don't want them. And so that's been the situation for Israel up till now. So several times Israel has been attacked, counterattacked over the years since 1948, and the United States has come in and said, enough. Okay, you did enough damage. Stop. And Israel's, you stop or we won't give any more weapons. We won't give you any more aid. That's it. And Israel said, yes, sir, we'll stop. And again, the Yom Kippur War of 1973, the most recent example of the United States president telling the Israelis, that's all, enough.
Well, so this is another topic that probably we can do that in more detail next time about Israel and American. I think they have so many connections. Some we know, some we don't. And then I have two more questions about the American people and the plan of destroying American, just like you said before. So my question is, do American government or the law enforcement or general American people, do they know about the plan for destroying American, just like you described? The plans come from the globalist, the Marxism. These people, they plan to destroy American for a long time. Do we know about that?
I think that
we just don't care.
No, I think that Americans don't really believe it. It's like, okay, we've heard this. The sky is falling. We're going to get invaded. We're going to lose. People are going to take over whatever it is. So and I think that the average American that's working their farm or working in their business or doing what they're doing, believe that we've always won in the past. We've always prevailed. All these threats we've had all these years, and in the end, we end up on top. And I think that there's kind of an optimism, in some cases based on ignorance, but in any event, it's an optimism that we are an exceptional country, that we will prevail, and my hope, in a way, is that all these millions of illegal migrants that have poured into our country, that maybe they'll wake up and realize, they came here for a reason. Right. They came here with an expectation that this country is a great country. And my position with them is going to be, they're never going to get evicted. They're never going to get sent home. So do your best to make America great. Right. Do what you can for that. And hope for that. But we have kind of an apathy that, what the rest of the world does not realize is that Americans have never been attacked. Americans have never had a battle on their soil since Civil War, basically, was the last time. The closest we've had to conflict in the United States, little, border skirmishes here and there, or outlaws from Mexico. Now, Pancho Villa, at the turn of the last century, was a leading gangster in Mexico. You see in the movies with all the bullets across their chests and the big sombreros. And Pancho Villa was, I'll go a side story here. Pancho Villa was buying his weapons in the United States for his, 150 or 200 pistoleros. And then they would go into cities and loot the grain and everything that the local farmers had grown, take their share, and then go back in the mountains. And so then in around 1916, Pancho Villa sends his people into New Mexico, a city called Columbus, New Mexico, to buy weapons. So they go in and they buy $10,000 worth of weapons in this gun shop, and then go back to Mexico and wait for the shipment to arrive. Now that would probably be, $500,000 worth of weapons today. But at the time, they go back a few months later to pick up their order. And the owner of the gun shop says, sorry, President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, has said, can't sell guns anymore to Mexicans. Too bad. Okay, give us our $10,000. No, sorry, can't do that.
Really?
So then they're not happy. We would call this in business unsatisfied customers. So the customers then shoot up the town. And in the process, they kill 9 Americans in Columbus, including a couple of U.S. soldiers that just happened to be in town in uniform, but they get killed. So now President Woodrow Wilson is so outraged, he orders the army, an expeditionary force, go into Mexico and track down Pancho Villa and his people and bring them to justice. So the soldiers are sent from Fort Bliss, Texas, and they're under the command of General Blackjack Pershing. And Pershing is going to put together his cavalry to go into Mexico and hunt down Pancho Villa. Now, in charge of the cavalry, and cavalry in those days was horses. In World War II, cavalry was tanks. In modern cavalry is helicopters. So, and helicopter gunships. But in any event, the person in charge of the horses and keeping shoes on the horses was George Patton. Patton, of course, becomes famous in World War II. He's running the cavalry then that are tanks, tank cavalry. So anyway, Patton, he goes in with this whole expedition, and it was officially called the Mexican Expeditionary Force. It was nicknamed the Mexican Punitive Force. The idea is to go into Mexico and punish them. So they go into Mexico, and for 18 months, they're chasing Pancho Villa in the mountains and going into small villages and everything, and they don't find him. The people help Pancho Villa. They do manage to kill a bunch of Mexicans in some of these towns, but they don't capture him. They don't bring an end to it. And then what brings an end to the expedition, which lasted 18 months in Mexico, what brings an end to it is Woodrow Wilson finally decides in 1916, okay, we're going to send troops to France to fight the Germans in World War I. And so Pershing and Patton and the others are recalled back to Fort Bliss, Texas, travel to New York, get on the ships to Paris, get off in France, and then join World War I, basically. Now, those troops show you how the battles of World War I, the troops are on the ground 105 days, I believe it was. In 105 days, we have over 100,000 soldiers killed in France. Another 300,000 wounded and everything. But it's enough to turn the tide enough to where Germany agrees to stop the fighting. They have the armistice, which was signed on November 11th, 1918, and that stops World War I. And then everybody gets on the ships and comes back. And the Germans and the French and a number of countries are saying, okay, the war was a stalemate from 1914 to 1918, and the Americans tipped it a little bit in favor of the Allies to the point where finally everybody said enough's enough. And the Germans more or less surrendered, was regarded as a surrender.
Right. Well, what a wonderful story. What a wonderful history. Thank you so much for sharing this part. Sometime when we look back the history, we learn a lot about the current situation, or we have more understand about where we come from. So the last question is, you mentioned that American has been attacked for a few times, but we can bounce back. So what do you think the power comes from? The bouncing back power comes from?
I think a good source of the power is the sheer number of Americans, the sheer determination and arrogance of Americans, stubbornness. Nobody could tell us what to do. Nobody could tell us that we're not going to fight. Nobody could tell us that they're going to take over and beat us and all of this. We're not going to allow that. And I think that that's part of it, is just absolutely, I think the English word is hubris, that we believe we're the best and we're exceptional and we're going to prove it if we have to. We don't want to have to. We want to go back. Part of the reason that the U.S. gets in this situation of having to catch up every time there's a major issue is that people are just, they go about their lives and become apathetic to the world. They don't care what's going on in Europe. They don't care what's going on in Asia. Doesn't affect us. We're going to work on our farm or in our business or teach our classes or do the things that we do, oblivious to the rest, because we figure they can't hurt us. That's the main thing. What are they going to do to us? They're not in the position that the oceans are a tremendous barrier to the borders of the United States. And then, trying to overcome it with their submarines or their ships or their rockets, we also have the more superior technology. Now, some of that some of that we did bad things to get the technology. At the end of World War II, German rocket scientists were the superior scientists in the world, led by a Nazi, Werner von Braun. And Werner von Braun, and they have an operation that the military carries out called Operation Paperclip, which is basically all of these Nazi rocket scientists are given free transport to the United States. They don't go to jail as war criminals. They come here and, okay, you can come to the United States. You could stay out of jail. You can pursue your desire to build rockets, but do it for us. Do it on behalf of the United States to win the Cold War and fight the space program against the Russians. Now, the Russians also captured so many Nazi scientists, but they were approaching from the east, and there weren't as many scientists in the eastern part of the German Empire as there were in the west. A place called Peenemünde on the north coast of France, I believe. And that particular underground secret rocket place where Werner von Braun and his people built the V2 rocket that was used against England. Those rockets, Werner von Braun and his design and his people, his team, killed thousands of British citizens, civilians. Those rockets rained down on London and the other major cities in England, killed thousands of people. So when World War II ended, they all decided, those scientists wanted to surrender to the United States and bargain their skills for their own freedom. And that's basically what happened. So we bring them here. And, in 1969, when the United States Apollo 11 goes to the moon, that rocket was designed by Werner von Braun on behalf of Nazis, NASA. Very, actually close, 2 4-letter words, Nazi, NASA. It was a good transition for von Braun.
So it's a good they don't have any relations between Nazi and NASA.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Whole lot of information that we really should know and in order to understand the current situation better. Let me have maybe 1 or 2 minutes to go over the feedback or the live chat from our audience.
Please do. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, thank you so much thank you for the great and the truth program. And then we have so many. The Tree Blue. The worst one is Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi. And then said Mike Johnson. Yui said, until Mike Johnson arrived, we saw a different vibe and action, talking about the Congress. And then thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for strengthening us in our Chinese society. Your wisdom and leadership are our honor and energy. And then Maggie, thank you. Hello, Cheyenne, Tom. Thank you again for sharing with us your wisdom and truth. You both are noble people and appreciate you very much. God bless you and God bless America. Democrats' friends years ago said, how dare Trump's group call illegal immigrants? Because when Trump called these people illegal immigrants, some people are not happy about that. Tiffany said, love you both. You're the best. And then, hi, Cheyenne, Tom. And then Maggie said, I very much agree with Tom. Most of Americans have long been living in a country without any major hardship. Thus, they do not believe Americans will ever lose their freedom and become poor. And so your information, the information that Tom gave us is very valuable, and thank you so very much. Ignorance of American, you mentioned why the American people don't care about that. All right, I think our time is up, and then thank you so much for sharing the information, shared the history story, which is so valuable to us to understand where Americans are at World War I, World War II, Cold War, and right now. And thank you so much to again and again mentioned that next year, 2024, is the most important year, the most important election in our history. And that election will decide our future. And thank you so much for giving us hope that when Americans still have the spirit of freedom, no one can beat us. And we need to wake up and use our strength to fight back.
Well, that works both ways, because the Chinese American community gives me hope that you have come here and your friends and relatives have come here expecting a great country, hoping that that's the right decision, the right sacrifice to come here and join Americans. And that needs to happen. That needs to stay true. But that inspires me. And what I hope is that it inspires other Americans that grew up here. Now, I'm only second generation. My grandparents had come from Mexico. My parents were both born in the United States. I was born in Chicago. But nevertheless, you still, I know the situations they left when they came here and that other people have left. And then it just brings it home even more for the generation that you lead that came here for the same American dream and don't want a wasted trip, don't want, your children and grandchildren to grow up and lose and not be, successful. And I think that we all have to do what we can do. Right. So you're doing what you do, and it's so extremely important and inspiring to me. And all I can do is talk. So shoot off my big mouth and hope that somebody might gain something from it.
It takes so much courage to do what you have done. Thank you so much. And I like to spend 1 minute to share my personal story about how I decide to come to the States.
Okay.
I read a lot of American novels, and 2 books give me very, very a deep touched. One is the Declaration of Independence. The other is about Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. I read these 2 books again and again and again when I was in China about 30 years ago. And I tell my parents that I decide I'll try to go to America. At that time, my parents don't really understand why. You have a very good life here, and then you know nobody there, and then you want to go there? And I said, yes, because I think that's my dream. So I still think about that, and I will still fight for that dream.
That's great.
Thank you so much. And I thank you, everyone, to watching our program. And I wish you can just let more people know about the program and let more people know that how we can do to keep America, America. And thank you so much again, Tom. I think the connection is getting some issue again. All right. Well, I think today the program is end up here, and I will make another one in Chinese within 1 or 2 hours. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you very much, Diane.
I'll see you next week.
Next week. You take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.